Mr. Terrence would like to share some things with you guys.
Oh, thank you, Maria. Yeah, I didn't know I was going to share anything until like 10 minutes ago. Some of you
We're all family, so
Sure.
we should all know what's going on.
Well, some of you may or may not know. I was in the hospital for several days, like a week or 10 days or something like that, in July. They found me at my ranch, unconscious, basically almost dead, with a blood sugar of 1,500 and something called DKA, and I had an acute pancreatic attack. So I was at Aurora South for several days. Maria came to visit me, but most people didn't know I was in the hospital. It was a well-kept secret. Still is, for the most part. But I was diagnosed with kidney failure, acute pancreatitis, and they thought I had type 1 diabetes. The good news is I've been out of the hospital now a little more than 30 days. The good news is that my kidneys are fully normal. My pancreas is producing insulin again. I'm not type 1 diabetic. I'm type 2, quickly working my way to not being one. But they've already reduced my insulin, taken me off of short-acting insulin, and I'm just on long-acting insulin and oral meds. But they say I'll have a full recovery, and they don't expect me to have any more pancreatitis, and I'm good. I'm happy to be alive. I was actually airlifted to the hospital, and I don't remember any of it. I don't even remember my first 2 days in the hospital, other than that I woke up in the ICU, saying I was the king of all hospitals, and dancing to Michael Jackson in my head. That's all I remember. And telling the nurses I'm a smooth criminal, because I was capable of escaping from out of the bed when I was supposed to. But other than that, it's been an eventful July and August. So I just wanted to share that with you all.
We love you. We love to have you back. Welcome back. And we're all trying to be, I'm not trying to bug him too much, because as you know, whenever we needed to be there, he's been there. So he tells me he's getting back to normal, but I want to make sure he's got time to recover because we want him around. So anyway, I just thought that it was important for you guys to know, because this guy's been through a lot, and he's been terrific. So you know.
What's that?
You were lucky you were found.
Yeah, I was. My ranch manager found me, and so things have gotten better. I mean, when I went into the hospital, I started the year at 270 pounds. When I went into the hospital, I was 245. I left at 230, and now I'm 215.
I noticed you.
And within about 5 pounds of my goal weight. So I'm actually almost the same weight I was when I was a cop. I mean, when I was 23, that's the last time I weighed this much.
Try some tequila.
I actually cannot drink right now.
I mean, when you can.
How did your blood sugar get that far out of whack?
Clean you out.
They don't. Well, there's a lot of reasons. One, I just didn't bother going to see my primary care physician for like 3 or 4 years, which is not a good idea. Well, that won't happen again. Then I weighed too much money. Not too much money. I wish I weighed too much money. And I actually weighed too much, and that put a lot of pressure on my pancreas and insulin production and things like that. And so that was part of it. And then stress contributed to it.
Maria was not.
No, Maria was not a contributing
I
factor to it.
am not a stressful person to have around as a
Yeah.
I
friend.
was just clearing the air.
I still blame my ex-wife for it, but but it was stress.
It's her fault, I agree. I got 2 of them, trust me.
So, and then the move and things like that, and so it was just a lot of different things.
So,
Great.
Oh, thank
he
you.
looks great. He looks great. He looks great. So we all need to support Mr. Terrence as he goes his ways to recovery here. So to be able to do that. All right. So I put on, since we all agreed that we would start having standing community representative reports. I know some of these committees have not met, but Drew and Ann, the EOC.
Okay, we have not met since the last CAC meeting, so I don't have anything new to report. But
It's Monday.
actually,
Oh, it's on Monday.
what I did want to say is that they gave, somebody gave us, the members of the EOC, this study by Colorado State University, which I could share with everyone. it looks a little foreboding. It's 90 pages and the title's pretty long.
It is a university document.
Wait.
It is a university document, so.
Yeah, okay,
Titles
yeah,
are
it's
always
written by
long.
professors, 3 professors, but the emergence of an innovation cluster in the agricultural value chain along Colorado's Front Range. But it's basically, I think, really pretty exciting because it's kind of about, to me, it was about the intersection of agriculture, technology, industry, and economics, and how this site of the National Western might become this new center. I forgot the word they used for it. But it's basically about, it really is global in reach and scope, but it's also about, I think, bringing it down to a neighborhood level, and the level of, it goes from the scale of the table and the air we breathe and the water we drink to a global scale, and how this area might be a world leader in these industries. And I can share it. I think it's...
We have a link to it. I thought we
It's
had
also
given
on
it
our
out
web-
before.
It's also on the NWCC website.
It's on the NDCC website. If some of you who want hard copies, let us know. We'll get your hard copies. But we can do that. But we can also we can just re-put the link out on the next roundup.
Yeah, it's. I think it's pretty inspiring work as to what the potential of what we're doing here can be. So, and then we're meeting Monday, so or the next meeting. So that's kind of all I have.
Mr. Zapien, you're next.
Okay, thank you. We got all kinds of stuff, you know. Since it's a standing committee, I will. First of all, as I stated in the previous meeting, that I would be asking, calling, maybe even leaning on individuals to help out in this effort. We're stretched out a little bit, some loose ends, but we're tying it together. It's kind of overlays of trying to get funding, try to get bodies, try to get issues to be addressed. So it's kind of a mishmash, but there's light at the end of the tunnel as all campaigns go. This is unique because there's no opposition that I'm aware of. Has anyone heard? Nothing? I met with
We'll take it.
anything?
No.
And I said, do we have a listener on the AM radio stations that seem to be the hotbeds of opposition to whatever issue is of the day? But I haven't heard anything back from anyone, so that's a good indication. This campaign to me is unique in that there's not an againer. I haven't heard anybody, but I think that we should take advantage of that, and I'll be asking individuals if you're able to and if you have the time. I know time is of essence here, because we're saying we've got 60 days to win this thing, and give or take a few days, but because of the stumbling, every campaign has it, and mumbling that's going on, I say 60 days and we're going to do it. So I meant to ask Ann the other day, I didn't have a chance, you had to leave. I'll be asking others. We need to get speakers together to talk to different groups. I don't know what the thing is with the inter-neighborhood cooperation.
I'll let Jake and
We'll,
Aid do that, yeah.
we'll make sure we got to get them pinned down, and other efforts. I want to make a concentrated effort to deal with the nonprofits, and I think that we have a real good resource there, because they're in our neighborhood, they're doing business here, and they got all kinds of people in and out all the time. So we'll tap into that, so we can get this thing moving. And feel free. If you have a suggestion, or if you think that we're not doing things the way they should be done, please let us know. Because like I said, we've got 60 days, and if we're not, if we have to make a correction, we've got to do it quick. Because once we get rolling, there's no turning back. Any other questions? You would, haven't you? Kyle,
There's 6 issues on, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that wants to jump in here. My understanding is that there's 6 issues on the November ballot that are requesting tax increments. And so that's one part of it. The second part of the question is, how does this, our fundraising or our tax approval, how does that stack up against the rest of those other 6 issues? And then the last thing I think, the really most important key thing is that I think we need to get out to Inc., International Neighborhood, get that out there, and then we need to be going statewide as well, obviously, especially the,
No statewide. Just Denver.
City.
Just Denver, mostly Democrats. One thing, what would help, I'm not asking out of school here. I need to know what place we're gonna have on the ballot.
2C.
It's definitely 2C.
We just verified it with the clerk and recorder.
When we get ready to send our flying squads out with literature drops, and we get people door to door, then we have to have a simple, concise, not all the wording that talks about all the other issues. The other issues that are coming up, they're there. We're going to fly right by them. We don't want to get bogged down. We don't get identified with anyone else. That's their business, and that's their problem. It's not our business, not our problem. Don't want to make it that. We're going to go straight ahead with what we got to do. And I think that's the only way to get this thing out in the front.
Yes, so before
Denver Post, I think, handled that pretty good.
Yeah, the Denver Post will editorialize for us, but let me just go through the ballot stuff, then I'll turn it over to Jake and AE to talk through some of this stuff on the nitty-gritty. Just so Armando, to your issue, there are 5 issues on the ballot. One may be pulled still, so we don't know. So 1A is the Adams County IGA on revenue sharing for the airport, and because Denver's a city and a county, and Adams is a county, it goes as 1A because it's a county issue, and they're treating it as a county issue. So 1A, so keep in mind that you're going to see school board candidates on the ballot, and keep in mind that you're going to see the retention of marijuana taxes is statewide also on the ballot. So you're going to see that. Okay, that's a statewide issue that was passed on by the legislature that is just for the purposes of taking the marijuana revenues out of Tabor. Okay, so then when you get to the city ballot, 1A is the Adams County IGA and revenue sharing, and then 2A is the college affordability issue. That is a tax increase, okay, to fund scholarships only in the city and county of Denver. Then you've got 2B, which is the marijuana tax retention effort at the city level, which is exactly what the state's doing, but it's at the Denver level, okay? And that one, because of Tabor, also has to be, and then we get to 2C, which is our issue, okay? And then the other issue that's on the ballot, and we'll put this on the link for the roundup, this is just the Denver issues, okay, is Initiative 300, which if certified, which should be certified, has to be certified by September 4th, but they may decide to pull it, is public consumption of marijuana, which allows public consumption of marijuana, even though they can't get afoul of the smoking laws. It's complicated, you need to read it, there's lots of controversy over it, and even the industry's not together on it. So they may choose not to proceed. So that's what's on the Denver ballot for this November.
It's clever.
Well, it is, I mean, to your point though, it's not all about tax increases, but it's fiscally oriented. So so our opposition may not be, somebody's funding an opposition against it, even though I have to tell you, after the meeting I had with the Hotel and Lodging Association this Tuesday, I'm not so sure. It was a pretty bad meeting, but the issues are fiscally related, so if you don't pay attention to read the ballot thoroughly, you could easily get confused and think that these are tax increases.
I think that's our task.
Correct.
To push hard and clarify no new taxes.
on 2C.
In our literature, in our contacts, make sure that we get that message. Keep pushing. No new taxes.
Right. So Jake, AE?
Sure. To reinforce what John is saying, the momentum is really the key thing, and I want to. My job is to be out here in the weeds, talking broadly across.
Can we use something else besides weeds?
Be out here in the grassroots.
Grassroots, good.
Talking broadly to people and making zillions of phone calls, and it's very encouraging that we've broken between 40 and 50 personal endorsements from residents in Globeville, Leary, and Swansea that are up on that, and it's going to become more and more. The more residents and the more sort of family-owned businesses within the borders of the neighborhoods that endorse this, the more we own this as a part of an extension of the aligned neighborhood plans and National Western plans. And this is a very important thing. I'm going to hand these around. I'm going to ask everybody that is on the NWC that hasn't endorsed this yet to really work to get any questions answered with folks that are here right now from the campaign or with each other so that you feel like you can endorse it. It would be extraordinary to have a full consensus of the NWC endorsement. Those of you that can't, some of you can't because of your professional affiliations, etc. With the nonprofits there, I'm not going to name the individuals that have done it, but 3 of the major nonprofits executive directors have endorsed this personally, but not as part of their nonprofit because that has to go through processes. So that is going through processes to reach the board level, and so hopefully we'll cross the threshold. And the staff within a lot of the nonprofits is starting to step up. If you can create chains of endorsements, the goal, I want to say that I can tell you for all of the endorsements, that 40 to 50 I brought in, they are all literate endorsements, meaning if those people were asked questions about this, they would have answers, or they would be able to say, get a hold of the campaign, let's find out about this. With Inc., I did meet with Larry Ambrose at length, and he did have some extremely valid questions regarding this, and the questions were added to the responses that are in some of the literature. Anybody who's a delegate to Inc., I'd be grateful if you contact Larry and encourage him to get this on the September 12th ballot. We did put it on the table at the zoning and planning meeting for discussion, and it's a very important thing to have a rigorous discussion. This will partly help people understand what John is saying, no new taxes, and this is leveraging the implementation of some tremendous coordinated neighborhood planning and master planning of the National Western that we need to bring across the threshold. We have right now, I've had one meeting at a house in Globeville, one of the beautiful Habitat for Humanity homes, and we have, Betty was there and a few other people, and we have people to cover grids to do flyering, crews of 3 to 4 all the way from Argo Park at East 47th south to East 43rd between Washington and Broadway. And those of you that know Salvador over here at Vine and 47th, we've got a crew that can cover that section of Elyria from the, is that 46th, right, just south of you? It's 45th or 46th, all the way up to 48th, where the post office is, over to 40. Anyway, you guys know what the grids are. Elyria is so confusing; it blows me up my mind. So the key is, if you feel that you can be a speaker, please get in contact with John or Jake. And let's get you out there, because we're starting to book things. And secondly, if you know people that want to do a little bit of walking, if you can walk 10 blocks sometime in the next 2 weeks, we'll add you to the cruise. And I think we've got an event at Old West Pancake House, fairly certain of night, or we're still locking that down. We're going to have some events where people can get together and we'll deploy. So if you guys can take these, if you can fill them out tonight and turn them back in, that would be great as individuals. And let's keep a chain going. And if people want to collect endorsements, etc., on their block, if you want to have a spontaneous, if you're going to have a family get together and there's 10 voters there, call me up on my cell and get me over there. This is my job, is to come and talk to people and to also harvest the questions, take them back to the, and I want to say one thing about this campaign. This is not an easy thing for me to work for something that I want to do from the heart. it's hard, and I'm so grateful. I am employed by this campaign, and I'm very grateful about this. It's like, and for those of you in the neighborhoods that have said, hey, AE, right, just go for it, I really appreciate that. What I want to say is that I'm being allowed to see the literature, respond to it, and having been immersed in the neighborhood plans and the master plan of the National Western Center, I'm very pleased that the edits and the language that I'm proposing to reinforce the imperatives toward the neighborhoods are being accepted into the edits on the literature, and that those accountabilities are being expressed. And that's very critical. That's one of the reasons I want to be there. That's one of the reasons I'm glad John is there. And that's one of the reasons I want everybody on the National Western Center Advisory Committee and who's been involved in the planning process to be front and center on this. So let's throw this switch. This is imported money. Heck, let's get it up to the neighborhoods. And let's leverage the accountability that our endorsement and involvement can be by staying on the marquee of this.
So what was Larry's comment?
Larry's legitimate consideration, pardon me?
Is he going to support it? Yes or
Well,
no?
I think Larry's going to, I won't speak for Larry. I think one of the things I respect about Larry best is he has a citywide view of things. And so his, and I really don't want to speak for him, but of what I feel is a very legitimate question.
That's bullshit, and we have to deal with it.
Pardon?
Okay?
What do you say?
Did you hear what I said?
I don't know what you're referring
To
to.
Larry Ambrose and INC. We'll deal with that. It's got to be done.
Oh, so you just want to
Yeah.
not get into it right here,
No,
right
not
now?
now.
I'm down with that. We can,
Okay.
yeah, because let's
move on.
either one person or another.
It's the
But it's all a good process. John, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's very appropriate. So that's what I can say. If anybody has any questions, if you have, please locate within yourself anything that's preventing you from endorsing and stepping up to do at least 10 to 20 blocks of covering in the next 2 weeks. Let's get the questions out, and that'll help us do the literature too.
Yeah, great. AE's terrific on the phone, by the way. She gets through to everybody. She really does. You walk in at Jake, all of us guys, we're all kind of marvel about her patience on the phone is amazing. She gets to get talking to people. Jake?
Yeah, so I've got some big updates from the campaign, just what happened last month. A lot of you were at our campaign kickoff at Stadium Arena.
Thank you for being there.
Thank you for being there. It was awesome. We had 200 people there. I've done a lot of these campaign kickoffs, and we always try to get press too. And you get like one guy normally. I think we had 5 outlets there. It was great. In alternate newspaper, TV. It was a really good event. Since then, last week we had a city council tour where we took, I think it's 11 of the 13 members of the city council on a tour of the site through the neighborhoods, and Kelly led the tour, gave the overview and the vision of the project, and it was a great tour, great conversation about what this is going to be. On the endorsement front, AE was mentioning we're up to 200 endorsers. You can find this on our website, including 45 current and some of the most recent city council members. So we've got the mayor, we've got Ken Salazar, we've got a lot of members of the previous city council. I think most of the Denver State House and state senators. And also on the online stuff, have you guys seen the Facebook ads? All right. Every day. Every day, perfect, that's what we like to hear. We know they're happening. So we've got 2 things going. We've got one that's a video, just gives really like 30,000-foot view of what the campaign is all about, with all of the improvements to the neighborhood, the stock show, bringing CSU to Denver. And there's another thing where we're trying to, I guess, kind of pull at people's heartstrings about the stock show and what it means to Denver. We got an ad, Save Our Stock Show, and we ask people to sign up their email, and then we can really keep a conversation going with them throughout the campaign. We've been pretty visible. We were at the Denver County Fair. Thank you, Tracy. We're going to be at Riot Fest this weekend and out there to get people signed up to help out on the campaign. CSU also passed a resolution in support of the campaign a couple weeks ago, so it's been a pretty busy month. The next month, next time we see each other, it's going to be 37 days until Election Day, just 2 weeks until ballots go out, so it's happening pretty quick. We are working on planning a meeting together at Old West on the 9th or 10th of September to really get our organization in place for Global, Elyria, and Swansea. Make sure we're getting signs out, making sure we have right visibility, that we're knocking on doors, calling people. We're going to be launching some more advertising online, so you'll see a lot more different videos talking about different aspects of the ballot measure. We're going to start knocking on a lot of doors, making phone calls, and we'll get a lot of yard signs, stickers, and literature. In about 2 or 3 weeks. As Maria said, we have a ballot number 2C. And then outreach on that front, we are talking to a lot of neighborhood groups and making sure we get to their monthly meetings to present the ballot measure to RNOs throughout the city. We are setting up some additional tours with the state legislators. We're doing a tour with the Museum of Nature and Science. We're going to try to do it with a lot of constituency groups who really have a big role to play in this campaign, just to get them activated. And then, as we were talking about Inc., we're trying to get on their September 12th meeting and really engage them and get their support. So, a pretty busy month. It's going to be next.
Yeah, it's a little bit on overdrive. So, any questions, thoughts,
I just
idea?
want to add one quick thing to Smart Denver,
SmartDealForDenver.com
if you want to see the most beautiful picture I've seen of Betty, that Jake took.
Oh, yeah.
It is, I'm trying to get him to enlarge it to 60 by 40 feet. It is a beautiful picture, right on the home page. And the website, I have to say for the folks doing the website, it's very helpful. It's very straightforward, and about 30% of the people I'm meeting door to door need help registering, and there's a link to register people at the website. So
I'm glad that you put it in Spanish, because I got a whole neighborhood full of people that don't read the English.
is that a new development out here? Because I wasn't aware of it.
It's been there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if any of you have friends or relatives who live in other neighborhood groups in Denver who are active, and you think, like I was having coffee with somebody the other day who told me that her husband is part of one neighborhood group. Not all RNOs in Denver are part of Inc.
Right.
So you have to remember that we're doing both. So if you've got anybody anywhere in the city who you think that we could do it, we need to pitch them, because these guys, they fill up really fast for September. They've taken off most of the summer, and now they're getting back in, and they fill up for September and October. And election day is November 3rd, so a meeting in November does not help us. So anybody you can do, that's great. These guys are doing a great job, and we got a lot to do and a lot of stones to turn.
And by the
But we're
way,
getting
our
there.
nodes that are members of Inc. are not off limits, because all of it adds
Right.
to the aggregate knowledge, even as we arrive at, hopefully, at an Inc. meeting. And we've got to get the discussion going broadly, so, we'll
Right. Anything else on the campaign? I'm just busy raising money. We are planning on going on television by the end of September. So that's I have a bullet to reach of 2 million by the end of September, so
If
that's what we're
anybody
doing.
has a question that's really holding them up in understanding this or anything, write it down and hand it to John while you're here, okay? And so let's so we can add that to anything that, because these are really helpful, and we want to have the opportunity to talk about it.
And if you feel compelled to give to the campaign, there's a link on the website.
Is there anybody here that would like to be a speaker or present?
I'd like to listen to the,
Cool.
Like speaking
I'd like to listen to the
different
questions.
groups, speaking to
Yeah.
Like neighborhood groups.
Different groups.
Yeah, boards and nonprofits.
Cool.
Yep.
And it won't be a huge, it's a very relaxed, as you know, like, it won't be like 30 assignments a week, it'll be within the parameters of you're already in same lives, that kind of thing, so.
I have one question, if I can throw it out. Is Colorado State doing anything to reach all their alumni that live in Denver?
Oh my God, it's the bane of our existence. Yeah, Jake and I. Okay, let me just tell you how weird our conversations are. Well, you're an alum, right? You're an alum, so you can. Okay, you talk to Jake. You're not leaving until we talk to you. Here's the problem. Even though Colorado State is Colorado State is an arm of the state government. So you can't do anything over $50 to encourage, advocate. Just to show you how bizarre it's been, Jake and I have sat in meetings with the General Counsel of CSU to determine whether Cam the Ram is an employee of Colorado State University. Just to show you how tough it's been.
That's why Trump is.
Well, except the Alumni Association, there's some nuances there. The Alumni Association is somewhat embedded within the CSU system, so the General Counsel is being overly conservative about doing this. So you're not leaving because we need to talk, because what we're trying to figure out is we can get 5 or 6 or 7 alums in Denver who are willing to spend some time, and then that way we may be able to get it. There's 24,000 households in the city and county of Denver who have a direct relationship with Colorado State University. They're either alums, parents, and/or work for CSU in some way or capacity. But we can't access that list because we haven't yet figured out how to do it in a way where it's not the state of Colorado providing something for
Maybe I
us.
could ask for this along my fellow alumni.
You're not leaving until we don't think, I mean, we're having a CU-CSU game, and we want to go flyer the CU-CSU game, and want to have stuff done with Cam the Ram, and it's like, oh my God, this is like pulling teeth. The one entity that's, and History Colorado is in the same boat, okay, aside from the stuff that's happening in History Colorado. The one group that is really, really out there who can help us, they're not-for-profit, and is working very hard, and they have 22,000 households in the city and county of Denver, is the Museum of Nature and Science. So,
You know, Geotech is making drones. Can't we just do an airdrop on the game?
I know, that's right.
Just get the flyers to my sons, they'll be happy.
Okay, that'd be great.
I've got 4 of them in my household.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes, so if you have any CSU alums who have some energy, please, we need them, because I'll tell you, the trying to get through the general council at CSU has been really, really, I can't tell you how many meetings or conference calls we've had. It's been tough. And I understand their position. They don't want to get accused of campaigning, and they don't want somebody suing them, and they don't want anybody, but oh my God, we need those to reach those 22,000 households, 24,000.
John or AE, what is an expectation for somebody if they come out to speak to a group, a neighborhood association, or an organization or something? Is this like a 15-minute? I mean, what's the kind of typical dog and pony show on this?
I would say do it at your convenience, as long as you cover the basic points that we will provide to you in outlining the issue. No taxes, an extension of the lodgers and renters tax. And I'm sure other things will come up. We'll give you whatever you need as a backup, and
You guys have already done this?
possibly we'll even be with you.
I was going to say, so you've already done it. I'm asking more like to recruit you. Just curious.
You're
I
not
have to
leaving
be
here
careful,
tonight till we
so-
have a good talk.
What's that?
I said, you're not leaving here tonight till we have a good talk, because we'll use you to recruit others. You're great, okay?
So I just want to add that there is a link on the website if you know anybody that wants to book a speaker. And there's going to be some good matchmaking coming out of the office with Jake and John and me, and that kind of thing for meetings. And that, yes, if you could say, I know some articulate people that would understand this, that could help speak to, and to remind people on your staff that they can endorse it as individuals. You got, you know.
In fact, I think, I don't want to drag this out any further.
No.
We need to.
It's the most important thing we're doing between now and November 3rd.
And the other nonprofits that are active in the neighborhood. And I think that, you know, we can get a lot of assistance from you in this effort, either as an individual or through some of your clients.
Well, and let me just say one thing. I mean, you guys have worked incredibly hard for 2 years on this plan. You guys know what's in it. You probably know in it naturally what's in it better than some of us, except for Kelly and Eric. But you are also the most passionate about it. I mean, one of the things in listening to AE talk to people on it, there's a genuineness, it's going to be, you guys are the best ambassadors for this project than anybody. Most of the majority of people in the city don't necessarily come up here on a frequent basis unless they're coming to the stock show or they're going to the Coliseum for an event. And you guys can really talk through the importance of connectivity. We've had people say, well, what are you really doing for the neighborhoods? Okay, let's walk that back, right? You guys are the best ambassadors to do this. So we really strongly encourage you guys, because you guys know this you've been at it for not just 2 years, you've been at it for all your life, but particularly in the last 2 years on it. So I would really encourage all of you guys to try to do 1 or 2, because it would really, really help.
And a final note just from my direction on this. I'm in Elyria, Swansea, and Globeville totally. And John is a true champion. And speaking for myself, and I'm not speaking for John, anytime anybody wants to put together a little group of people that just want to ask questions, I'll get in front of them somehow. And that's part of what my job is. And then to keep the campaign office looped in if there's questions that are unanswered, and to try and get more people out. And John is kept in the loop on anything that's scheduled. So, you know, gather people together. If you know, have a cross-block party. Invite 20 people and say, get somebody here. You know, please do it, because the more we get the word out, the more we'll have canvassers and speakers and people that will vote. And a lot of families in Global Larry Swansea are extended family into many other neighborhoods. And this is really a critical networking hub. So,
I have a question. As far as the clergy for this area,
did you say clergy? I just didn't
the
hear
clergy, as far as the clergy for the area, how's that gone with that? I've been a little bit out of the loop, so trying to catch up.
You don't go to church on Sunday, I take it. Okay.
Go to funerals.
Dennis Gallagher, I talked to Dennis Gallagher, and we're in the process of trying to set up a meeting with the bishop. And I'm going to tell him, you don't get a Pope mobile. Well, ask Paul Arnold to get the tractor and the hay wagon and give the bishop a ride at the tour. No, we're in the process of doing that now, and Dennis said he'd be more than glad to do that, you know, because the bishop came out of this church right across the highway over here, Guardian Angel. So he's not blind, so he's somewhat familiar, you know. But the Catholic Church specifically has, what, 7, 8 churches in this part of the city across the line. And you know, I get a chance, I'm going to twist his arm and tell him, you know, we're going to go to the Vatican if you don't adhere to Papa Pancho's wheelings and dealings of what's going on in the world today. And this is right at home for you, Bishop, so I don't see how you can't go with it. You know. We're working on that now.
And just out in the, not the weeds, but the only thing that the main thing I've been doing is the Holy Rosary, I have found over the years, has the most local parishioners, members, as opposed to the Polish church down the road. And I mean, local to Golden Larry Swansea. There's a lot of Denver voters, and I'm really concentrated. So I've been hanging out on Sundays and just kind of talking to people. And then even
hanging out inside the church or outside the church?
Outside the church. No.
Have you thought about going in?
No, when people come out, well, I don't know. I don't want to. I'm a hair.
Ask the priest to go in and do an announcement.
I didn't even know that you could do an announcement to the congregation.
Yeah.
God allows that? God is neutral? Okay. I'm happy to do that. And
God likes to structure because we have animals.
I'll check with John to make sure we strategize with the bishop, but I just meet people when they come out. But sure, we'll talk about it. I didn't know you could do that. Okay, cool.
And John, if you're going to have the bishop come, to be
We're
biblical,
going to try and get him out here.
to be biblical, he should be on a donkey, and we should have people waving palm leaves as he comes by.
Not the bishop.
Just trying to make him feel at home.
Okay, so.
All right, this is getting way too out of hand.
Is that on tape? Did we get that?
Yeah.
Believe me, you won't find any in this neighborhood.
We got other green stuff.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. I think we beat the campaign to death here.
And I'm being a bad influence at this point.
Yeah. Okay, event programming and capital funding have yet to meet, so Mr. Lead?
Sure. So first, bear with me, I've had a migraine all day, so I'll do my best to be coherent. So one of my many roles on this project, or all these projects, is about the pace of the projects, right? Kind of said these are long, arduous, big, complex projects that take a lot of time. And AE sent me an email and asking about getting the event program advisory committee and the capital funding committee started, and so the intent was always to try to get the EOC up and running and get a few meetings under the belt of the EOC, and then have both the EPAS and CFAS lag be behind, right, so that we could set the pace with the executive oversight committee. We've been working hard to get committee chairs assigned. On the CFAS, we were hoping for a chair that we've not been able to make a connection, so I circulated an internal email to Carrie Kennedy's staff, and Carrie, of the two committees, that's the most immediate because there are a whole series of technical and legal issues that we have to start talking through relative to the financing. So when we're successful on November 3rd, we start to get ready for all the legal documents and all the technical issues relative to the funding of this project that we need to start working through, and there's a long list of things we got to work through. So I'm hopeful that here in September we will get the capital committee launched, of which Armando is the representative. That's one. The second is the event programming subcommittee. We had asked George Sparks and Ed Nichols to co-chair the committee. As many of you probably know, there's been some changes at History Colorado, where Ed will be leaving History Colorado in his formal role. Him and I have a phone call tomorrow just to talk about if he can still play an active role, because he's a founding, History Colorado is a founding member of the partnership, and we'd love to have Ed obviously continue to be involved in some capacity. That being said, we have a lot of time for the event programming advisory committee meeting. Let me quickly give you a reason why. When you think about, again, when this election is successful in November, we are looking at a series of kind of critical path items that we've got to get done, one of which is land acquisition. We have mapped out an 18 to 24 month process to buy the land, right? And that assumes it goes well. The next is rail consolidation, which is the second most critical thing, getting that rail off the river and consolidating that rail down what is currently National Western Drive. That is also a arduous task, and getting Denver Rock Island to participate in that process, and those will be lengthy processes. Those are probably the two most fundamental and most complex things we'll do initially. Then once we get those two going, then we have site remediation and demolition and a whole bunch of stuff. So we are probably several years into this project before we actually start to see real construction, right? So that being said, going back to this idea of having a pace to the work is, look, you guys have committed an enormous amount of time, and what I don't need to have happen is for us to just have meetings to meet. So I will work hard with, as soon as I have the conversation with Ed Nichols, we will work hard to get the EPAS committee, which is again the Event Programming Advisor Committee, up and running here in the next couple months. And the first kind of work of that committee is going to be about process, specifically of how do we start to engage future partners as part of the National Western Center. And partners can be a variety of things. A partner that invests money in the campus, right, because they want something permanent, to someone that just wants to do a show, right? So the range of partners that we will ultimately have will vary significantly. And we need to have a structure by which those partners can engage us. Right now we don't have a structure, so I've asked George and Ed to think through having the first series of conversations about, from EPAS to be about setting up that structure. So that folks can kind of plug in where they want to be partners with us. So that being said, we'll look for again the capital funding alignment subcommittee to probably kick off here in late September. And again, that'll be a continuation of a lot of the folks that were involved in our finance and governance subcommittee. So lawyers and financiers and folks from the city's risk and capital group, representatives from CSU and National Western on a really focused conversation about finance. And then we'll look to have kickoff EPAS here again in the next couple months. So we'll get maybe a couple meetings under our belt before we go into the holidays. And obviously, if for some reason we wouldn't be successful in November, obviously we'll have a different conversation. But I am moving full speed ahead as if we're going to be successful in November, and we are setting the stage for a whole bunch of work in 2016. Any questions on those two? Let's go to Drew and then to John.
So Kelly, with the changes at the History Colorado, can you reassure us that there's no doubt or question about the full role that History Colorado would have in this the new center? That that there's a memorandum of understanding that hasn't diminished or anything, or is that?
I'm going to turn. I've not talked to Ed, but Maria has some information.
We called right away. In fact, we have a weekly coordinating meeting with the city. Kelly and I were in it last Friday. I called Doug Freenash, the governor's chief of staff, and they responded very quickly. Both Alan Salazar, who's his deputy chief of staff, and Doug Freenash were there. They reassured me that on behalf of the state, they would do nothing to get in the middle of the ongoing pieces that are in place already, that they had to make issues. Tamara Ward, who was at Colorado Concern, who's an active board member of History Colorado, is playing an active role. She's very familiar with what's gone on in this area. The governor's office just named Steve Turner, who you know. Steve Turner, when Ed couldn't be here, Steve Turner is the interim director of History Colorado, along with Robert Musgrave. So
Who's
we
been very passionate about this project.
who feels very passionate about this project. Former executive director of Historic Denver. So Steve Turner is, and in fact, what makes it even better is because Steve Turner's partner, Dr. Stephen Kick, is the chairman of the Coors Art Show for the National Western. So there's a huge tie to the National Western here from Steve Turner and his partner, Dr. Kick. So I think that we're feeling comfortable that there is nothing that's going to do, they're not going to do anything. One of the concerns we had, that because of the audits, were that some people in Denver may get the impression that this money was going to go, and this was Kelly's concern, to bail out History's Colorado problem. That is not at all the case. History's Colorado's problem has everything to do with gaming money and the reduction of gaming revenues. We're feeling comfortable at the governor's office. We called like that day. Kelly and I were together when we did the call. So Free Nash and Salazar have assured us that there's not anything they're going to do. In fact, confidentially, not confidentially, the governor is ready to endorse. It's just that we're talking through timing and venue and when would be the best. We want maximum, exposure and maximum leverage out of all of this, and so we are working through it. So we're not worried that they're going to take a second look. Rick Peterson is also on the board of History Colorado, who's an active member of the National Western Group and on it. So there's enough linkages, but the governor's office just announced today that Steve Turner will take over as interim until they decide what they're doing permanently.
It's just that the history was a big, critical, central role to this, and some of their challenges are financial, so I don't know if they're in a diminished financial situation, if they,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, part of, like any organization, right? They're going to go through their ebbs and flows. But I think the content's there, the excitement's there. I think Ed personally, regardless of what Ed does in his next journey, has, I think, told Maria both and I that he wants to still be involved, even though he's no longer in official capacity at History Colorado. So he's got a lot of, obviously, history of the project. So I've not had a personal conversation with Ed yet. So and I'm not trying to make any excuses. We will get these committees up and running, and trust me, once we start, they won't stop. So hang in there with me. John.
I think she had.
Oh.
No, go ahead, John. I'll come next.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know Ed prior to, as I didn't know a lot of you here, but through the process, I got to kind of admire him, and I think it would be a real asset if he continued being involved, with everything we do up here. And I would encourage you, and if it takes whatever it takes, to make sure that he's able to do that, as long as it's not a conflict for him or anyone else up there.
He's kind of a free citizen now, so.
He has made it very clear to everybody, to Kelly. I mean, I'm sure Kelly will hear it tomorrow, to everyone at the National Western. I mean, he's a member of the National Western, and he very much wants to continue staying involved. In fact, he's a trustee, isn't he?
I think he's a trustee.
He's a trustee of the National Western, which is separate apart from his role as being head of History Colorado.
Yeah, just a short time, that I communicated with him over a couple of things. I actually developed some admiration for him, and I think he'd be a strong asset to Peter. Really encourage him to stay on too.
And I think the last thing that AE brought up in her email was dates. So obviously, as part of this, we'll push out when the dates are for the subcommittees, but look for a date being set for the capital funding alignment subcommittee for probably late September. And we'll push content out. And again, everyone will be a lawyer when we're done with this, because a lot of the conversations early on will be about lawyer stuff and all the financial documents. Okay? Yes?
Really quick question, and apologize in advance for being Debbie Downer, but.
It's okay.
Question, I know that you, in your initial remarks, you talked about reaching out to the landowners in kind of the land acquisition process, and we're aware of that, obviously. I'm curious if the funding does not get approved, are there backup plans? Are there, I mean, for that part of the process? And I don't mean to get into a lot of detail, but I'm just curious kind of what that looks like and what that would look like.
Oh, good question. So the question is, what happens if for some reason just things didn't go our way in November? And part of this gets to my pacing too of how much money's going out the door right now. So we're being cautious of how much goes out. But the minimum we will do is if for some reason things did not go well in November, we have enough money in the city through existing resources where we would go ahead and proceed with land acquisition. Because you can't have a project without the land. Now, how we fund the rest of it, we don't have an answer. I mean, we will go to Plan Z. We would look at a very different structure, but and obviously that's not a conversation any of us want to have. But the focus of the city is to buy the land. I mean, that's why it's still the number one. It's the number one activity that we've already started, and actually Eric has some good news on that front. But it'll be the number one thing we focus on, because without land and control of the land within the boundaries of the campus, there is no project.
David?
Go ahead, David.
Have you guys decided who's going to own this, the city or National Western?
The land?
The whole thing?
The city will own all the land within the boundaries of the campus. So part of the land that's currently owned by the Western Stock Show Association will be transferred to the city. Okay, so all the land within the confines of the campus boundary would be owned by the city. Now there's a caveat to that with the state relative to where the CSU
Yeah, the city
buildings.
can't own the CSU
state might
buildings.
own the land where the state buildings go. But other than that, a governmental entity is going to own the land. That's one, and the buildings.
Let me ask you one more question. This might be too soon.
Okay.
Adams County wants a piece of this. What are you going to do about that?
How have they expressed that?
Probably a whole nother conversation. There has been, through their Office of Economic Development, they have alluded to wanting to be involved. And my response back to them was, as financial partners, and then there's a lot of silence. Right. Because all the land for the National Western is in Denver. So, I think there's a huge opportunity as we talk about partners. There's a lot of farmland in Adams County. And I've said to Chad Tedesco, who's the chair of the county commissioners, and their OED folks, their Office of Economic Development folks, look, there's a huge opportunity to partner around a whole range of issues around the ag side of this, but we got to focus on getting this passed, right? So Chad and I actually saw Chad at the groundbreaking you and I were at, and we agreed that we were going to start having coffee frequently so that those conversations can be a little more open and less kind of, this kind of weird lobbing questions at us at the city. But I think we get the IGA done with the airport and we start talking about how we're partners on a bunch of stuff, we'll be fine.
I think that's the key, to get there's two elections, one in Adams, one in Denver.
Yeah.
And if those pass, and let's
day.
hope they are, it's a new day.
AE?
One quick comment on the partnership thing and one concern on the programming. I really appreciate that partners are wanting to step up, and I love the look on your face when you said as a capital partner. I really appreciate that. Keep that up. That's great. As a first response, really good with a migraine too. I hope that we really feed all of this though into the beautifully public and transparent and engaged and participatory interim governance process. And then I don't want to have an experience where people in leveraging places and high and mighty or powerful people come in and say, and I mean that respectfully, come in and say, well, we've signed this deal with this partner and we're going to now integrate it. And I'm not even saying, please don't don't let me make you feel that I'm saying that you would do that. What I'm saying is when things move fast, I want to make sure everybody understands that and that we have that potential here. So, and I'm sure that's what's going to happen with the intergovernance and then as we move to it. On the programming, I'm going to speak as a member of the advisory committee. I want to advise us. I really feel what you're talking about, Kelly, is a level of programming and construction is very important. But there is programming possible right now, as an example, content. I just did a debriefing with CSU Extension on the soil testing kits that we did dispersed in the neighborhood, and we've got a rollout for October, even broadly. I'm doing this within the context of being a National Western Center person, forming relationships right now in this arena with the neighborhoods. We can do it with the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. We can develop, we don't have to wait to develop these beautiful content partnerships. And so I'm going to ask us to define it. That's what I felt was part of what programming was. And we need not to miss this opportunity because we can, regardless of what happens with the buildings even, we can establish and bring this into the neighborhood. So I'm asking for us to evacuate the programming committee. I'm doing it in a vacuum, just saying, please keep this in mind that this is an NWCAC activity.
So, and that's great. I think sorry, and again, I'm taking a second to process because my brain's not functioning on all cylinders today. Is one, obviously, let's record, and I'm sure you are, those conversations. So we have an essence of what's talked about, right, and what the steps could be. That's one, because that's going to help us have those future conversations. That's one. Two is I'll go back to, obviously, Eric and I are super focused on having a successful construction project, because again, none of this is possible if we don't actually have a project. That being said, let me finish. That being said, the third piece is the part I'll try to say it a different way, is we've got to have the EPAS subcommittee have a conversation about a structure by which partners can engage. Right now, that does not exist. So it's a random conversation about how someone might partner with the project, and then subsequently back into the neighborhood. How do those things connect? So one of the first tasks I'm going to ask those chairs to lead as part of the conversation is to map out a structure by which you might have a financial partner at one end, again, where they're contributing dollars to the facility for physical programming, all the way down to just some sort of volunteer program, right? So people can start to identify with a slot, right, of where they might fit in and what their obligations might be relative to the partnership. We don't have that structure yet. So that's a really important task, to be able to advance those individual conversations of how programming actually fits into the center and then how it reaches back out to the community. So I'm not discounting what you said. What you're saying is critically important. I say we got to start with we got to have a structure in place by which we can organize those conversations.
Okay, I agree, and I feel like we do have a partner with CSU, we do have a partner with Denver Museum of Nature and Science, we do have a partner with District Colorado. We can activate content. So, and I am working with CSU, I'm working with Jocelyn, I'm working with everybody. I just want to make sure we realize we can move to the way, we can move rapidly, we don't have to wait for all the buildings, and those will be permanent effects for the neighborhoods regardless of what happens. So, I'm
not saying that.
So okay,
but I've got to have an ability to manage the process. Right, and Kelly, we can't have a bunch of free-for-all.
Right, Kelly, that's why I'm suggesting, truly, I support the infrastructure. I'm suggesting that we recognize that the Events and Program Committee has a reason to convene maybe a little earlier than you're considering based on the very important level that you're dealing at. I'm asking for that to be considered. Let's table it for now, let's keep talking about it, and I'd like other people to think about it too. We've got a lot to talk about. I just want to open it up because we've got that potential. We really do.
Okay. Any more on this?
I would just suggest that you change the name from EPAS. It sounds like you have a transponder in your car. Toll.
Everything's going to be told anyway. So. All right, we'll come up with a snazzier name. Sorry. Maybe that can be the first task of the session. We're just coming up with a better name.
I know.
All right.
All right.
I think I'm still up.
You are.
Okay, I'll be very quick on this one. So this is more general updates on NDCC stuff. Lots going on across all 6 portfolios. We have CH2M Hill, who's doing the design work for Brighton Boulevard. That 100% design will be done in November. So of of the construction documents. We will have 100% construction document design.
Through Race Street, Kelly?
No. 29th to 44th, segments 1 and 2. We have 30%, we'll have 30%, we have 30% soon for 44th to Race Court. Okay?
Almost race.
Yeah, almost Race Court.
Have to be.
And then, so that's good, all good. Related is we had issued an RFP, competitive RFP, to select what's called an integrated contractor. Typically, the city would issue individual RFPs, requests for proposals, to get contractors for an individual project. There's so much going on in River North with Brighton, the park, the future Rhino Park, 33rd Street, Festival Street, a variety of other things. We did what was called an integrated contractor RFP. So we listed all those projects that fall within kind of a lot within River North. The drainage project, this contractor essentially will oversee. So we went through we bundled all this stuff. We had 9 of the top construction firms bid on this work. And I will tell you, there are city projects where we're getting no bids. So the fact that you have the big 9 bid on this was a credit to Public Works and bundling all this work, because the project got big enough in terms of financial components that you had the big 9. Through a competitive process, Hewitt was selected to be the integrated contractor, and we are in contract negotiations with them, and we will be taking that contract through City Council in October. So they would be executing the Brighton Boulevard improvements. They will be executing the Rhino Park improvements, etc. So we'll have one contractor instead of multiple contractors, so that we can move more swiftly, right, and spend the dollars where it belongs, which is into the project. Okay? So that's big news.
Construction manager.
And they can self-perform some work under certain conditions, but usually if they're going to bid it out, they have to do 3 bids, and every project will be a little different. But the goal is to get the best, obviously the most competitive bid for every project, which right now is very difficult. I mean, with price escalation and the amount of work going on. So we're very lucky to have such a great contractor right out of the gates that is going to help us implement some of the biggest projects right out of the block. So that's kind of takes care of a lot of the Rhino stuff. We're working on the Ped Bridge that'll connect Taxi to the park. That's moving along. We had a public meeting here not long ago on that. We had the Rhino Park kickoff with a public meeting. Really good turnout for the Rhino Park. Got some good initial feedback on that. The RTD stuff is moving along. Obviously, if you drive by 38th and Blake, the station's really starting to look more alive as they move to bring that train on board in 16. And then the Gold Line will come online in 16 as well. Then the North Metro line will come online in 18. So we're working with RTD. We actually had Eric and I had a really good session with RTD to coordinate the station at the National Western, and thinking through some creative strategies of how we build that station once, instead of having to come back and tear it up when we build Brighton. So there might be a strategy there where we work in tandem with RTD on that station development. Army Corps of Engineers is going at it hard on their study for the South Platte. We have a big group from our wastewater division and Public Works, CPD, Community Planning Development, I'm a part of it. Mayor's office is a part of that study work, so that's making its way through what is a 3-year-long process. They'll ultimately make recommendations, which includes exploring the Delgany Interceptor and the ability potentially to possibly move the Delgany Interceptor that sits on the bank. That'll actually be an early decision point, which is important for us. Those are the big things going on right now across. You'll start to see construction this year on the 35th, 36th Ped Bridge, which is part of being able to get across the consolidated main line off of Wazee to get over to 38th and Blake. We're going to be kicking off work on 35th Street. We want that to be kind of a pedestrian, bike-friendly street that would allow you to move all the way from Taxi across the new Ped Bridge, through the park, basically up 35th, and comfortably get over to the 38th and Blake Station via a couple bridges. So that work will kick off. So lots going on. We're getting a lot of staff hired within the city to support this work. which is a big undertaking from all the reductions we took during the recession. So we're starting to ramp back up with staff support to get these projects done.
Can I ask you one question about RTD, Kelly?
Yep.
I've heard a couple, for this rumor mill rumblings out there about the North Metro line not being built very far. I mean, is that just some, how far down is it going?
No.
It's going to go to 124th.
And it's funded, it's really going.
That is correct. And then there's a deal that, before Phil Washington left, actually has, there within the contract, that if RTD gets the funding, can find the additional funding, before the contractor demobilizes, they will then complete the line to 167th.
So it's an add-on piece maybe.
Right, but they did not have the funding for that piece, but no, it is, I mean, I will tell you, because RTD is going to be, after this year's stock show, RTD will take the land from the National Western and...
Yeah, just so you know, they've actually transferred $3 million of their money into National Western escrow already, because they're going to take before the end of the year. I mean, that thing is, yeah, so there's no way that RTD is going to exercise their power of eminent domain if they don't think it's, yeah, so they're taking.
And I would relate, if you happen to be around, I would not go, unless you're going to Riot Fest, and you want to go by the Marion Underpass, you know, the BN built their new bridge, which is the permanent bridge that will have the wider opening. We will ultimately demolish the old, I call it the old box culvert, the old bridge. But BN's been doing their work. So you can go out there and actually, if you stood on the 1916 side, the building side, and look back, you could see the new bridge in place with how wide the openings will be. So that's where Betty Cram Drive goes through. So we committed funds to that in partnership with RTD and a partnership with Burlington Northern, and so we went ahead and played riverboat gambling a little bit and said we're going to spend that money because we got one shot to do it now, a lot less expensive than we would if we had to come back and try to do it later. So if you go check that out, that bridge is done. So we got a lot going on.
Now, with all the lights rail stops, when do they think the stock shall start?
2018.
2018, okay.
No date within 20, but you know, sometime in 2018.
There's a question back there.
There's also, talking about like the north part of Denver, there's also a lot of work that happened at the old Asarco spot. Like it's now been flattened and can maybe...
I'll let Dave.
We'll let Dave do the report.
Dave will do the report on that.
Give us like an update.
This is progress. This is history right here. First time in Globeville. A couple of years ago, they did not have technology to clean up that property. We went to groundbreaking, and it's amazing what they're going to do there. You know, that's all I can say about it. It's just, you know, it's getting cleaned up, it's getting built, and there's going to be jobs. You know, there's going to be jobs coming back to this neighborhood.
It was a very exciting. There was there'd be a couple hundred people there.
Yeah.
From Denver, Adams County, Commerce City. To see that site reactivated was pretty exciting.
Hey, John and Drew, we have about 45 minutes to finish the meeting, so quick questions.
Quick question, just one thing. Because of the high cancer rate in this part of the city, what's the issue of liability regarding that project? Who's going to be liable? Who's going to assume the liability? Does anyone know?
Whoever, well,
The brownfields people.
yeah, whoever did the site prep, so the folks that came in and actually cleaned the site and prepared it for construction.
Okay, that's all.
No.
Travel Pros is
Oh, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry I'm late, but I did bring food from being late. So this is our vegetarian tacos and tostadas that Sandra Morales made. We just came from a different event, but help yourself.
Oh, you could be late every
Vegetarian
weekend.
tacos.
Yeah,
You could be perpetually late. It's okay. Erica?
Yeah, I'll make it really quick.
I thought you were.
So, the NWCAC has their upcoming town hall meeting. It's scheduled for September 9th, which is a Wednesday, at the Grow House. Same thing, I mean, Kelly just went through a slew of different things that are happening in Globeville or Swansea. So the NWCAC town hall meetings, as you know, are an opportunity for us to provide updates to residents. There continues to be a lot lot of movement, so it's important for us to give folks one place where they could go and talk to all of the different project teams under one roof. So the town hall meeting is planned for the 9th. In addition to that, we also have a roundtable discussion as part of our town hall meetings, and this time around it'll be on, the title is Creating Successful Food Systems for GES, and this is really due to the last NWCAC town hall meeting that we had at a garden place, where the conversations were around nonprofits and the work that they're doing in the community, and that really focused a lot around access to healthy food. And so this time around, we're hosting the roundtable on creating food systems in GES and what that would look like. And we've got a couple of different organizations that will be part of that panel, and we'll really encourage a discussion around what that would look like successfully if we did it in Global Swansea. So please join us for that, and share it with your neighbors, take extra flyers, and happy to drop off additional flyers throughout the community. Yes.
Is it campaign?
I'd like to announce, I don't know if anybody, I've been there a couple times to the new King Supers that opened up on 20th in Wewetta. It's awesome.
Oh, Chestnut.
Pardon me?
Chestnut.
Chestnut. Well, you gotta get through Wewetta to get there. But it's an awesome King Supers. It's right here next to Glowville, right there, you know.
Drew, you have that look of you want to say something in your face. Okay. All right, so next, the Historic Preservation Work Plan.
Hi.
You must be Barbara.
I am Barbara.
Welcome.
I'm the newest member of the NWCAC team, I think. And I work on strategic partnerships. So I should, thank you. Oh, okay, here, I'm gonna do this. I don't know if you guys remember, but the National Western Center Master Plan had an Appendix G, which included very detailed recommendations on how to address historic preservation. And so what we've done is created a work plan, and we work together very closely with CPD, that's Community Planning and Development, and the Landmark Preservation team, as well as History Colorado and Historic Denver, to translate these recommendations into a work plan that basically breaks everything down into tasks and timelines and scopes of work, and identifies who's doing what. So I'm not going to go into all of this detail, but you have it to read if you're interested in that level of detail. I am just going to kind of briefly highlight the key tasks that we'll be covering as it pertains to historic preservation on the site. And John, please chime in. Eric, please chime in if you feel any need to, since you were involved in these conversations.
Sure.
So the first thing we're going to do is document a comprehensive history of the National Western Center site. And this includes everything from the historical development of the site, physical and historical evolution, Western and agricultural heritage, the ties to agriculture and the meatpacking industry, cultural history, relationship with surrounding neighborhoods. So it really is a very comprehensive history of the site. It will be all packaged into one document that is a user-friendly document, and it will inform a very robust public interpretation plan of the site, so that when people visit the site, ultimately they can be educated about the history of what has occurred there over time. This work will correspond or coincide with creation of applications for national and state register of historic places and listings, as well as local Denver landmark listings for 3 buildings: the 1909 Stadium Arena, the Livestock Exchange Building, and the Armor and Company Meatpacking Plant Office. You guys familiar with all these buildings? These are kind of the most historic buildings on site, and they were identified in the master plan as being the structures that made the most sense for historic designation.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Does that include the water tower? The old
That-
farmers water tower?
Yes, that is considered a feature, not a building.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that is addressed in number 6,
Okay, thank
document
you.
historic features.
Okay.
Okay, so this work that I just described, numbers 1 through 3, we are tackling starting this fall and completing hopefully by June 1st, 2016.
Can I ask you one question? You talk about site, is that just the geographic area of the National Western? Frequently that's talked about site, yet we have a lot of this history all through Globeville, the meat packers, the Denarville market, that is all off-site. Are you going to be studying that? I know you said you're making reference to those, but I think it's critical that they be included in your study and not just an inferential reference to those whole areas. I think it's critical for this whole area that they get that recognition.
Yeah, I think that this study will address the agricultural history of the area and the National Western as it relates to the agricultural history and the meatpacking industry in the area. The master plan and the neighborhood plans also recommended a thorough review of historic preservation or historic resources in the neighborhoods. That, you know, to the extent that we cover that in this, I think there will be some of that, but there is, as part of this work plan, a later effort that would go into that in more detail. I know that you guys, Historic Denver, has some work going on as well with that.
Yes, Mickey, Historic Denver is actually going to be doing a lot of things associated with this, but not directly with the stock show. We're also going to be working in the outlying neighborhoods in Globeville and Elyria, Swansea. And one of those aspects is going to be survey work and some research associated with that. So we're hopeful that we're going to gather all that information in that work, and then it will be complementary to what is found in this particular plan.
Do you have a ballpark figure as to time when you might do that?
I think that Historic Denver was talking about moving into Globeville and working on some things there very shortly. I'm within the year.
Okay.
And I think that the conversations with the organizations and with the residents about that happening is going to be happening within the next couple of months. But we haven't made full commitments to that as of yet because we're still working in some other neighborhoods, but we're planning on moving up into here because of the timeliness of all of these things going on.
Just one more thing, Jim. I don't see it anywhere. The cattle crossing bridge over the Platte River, what's left of it?
That's also included in number 6.
Features, yeah.
So number 6,
Okay.
Where are you seeing these numbers? I don't see the numbers.
I'm going to come back in a second.
Oh, these are, okay, thank you.
So and the reason it's broken up like this is because it's a little bit difficult to understand even for those of us who've been thinking about this for a while. This breaks it up into kind of chronological order of work, and a lot of that has to do with how we would contract out with consultant teams to do this work. So the first 3 tasks, they go together because we need to hire a historian to do that work. Tasks 6 and 7 go together because we need to hire historical architects to do that work, and landscape architects. And so it's a different level, different set of expertise that's needed, and so they're kind of split up. But it definitely covers all of the historic buildings, all of the features, the social and cultural history. It will all be covered.
Okay.
Just in separate tasks.
David, then Ann, because David's had his hand up.
You know, I was just gonna ask her about the cattle bridge.
Yep.
You know, I was gonna bring up.
And the idea is that when all of this work is done, there's a very clear path for how all of those features are incorporated into the site's redevelopment in a sensitive way, and also into the public interpretation plan, so that when someone visits the site, they have there's a very clear story being told about the history of this place and the importance of it to Denver and to Colorado.
There'll be ample time for input into that process.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the only piece we're starting right now is numbers 1 through 3. This document, documenting the comprehensive history and then pursuing the designations. And there will be community outreach activities associated with the documenting of the comprehensive history. We don't have the details on that yet, but we'll definitely keep you updated and get your input on the best way to do that.
So under task 5, creative media, I would strongly encourage considering working with Havey Productions on Havey, Havey. They're local filmmakers, and they are the ones who did the film on Union Station.
Oh,
They
okay.
just recently completed one on the Great Divide. He's just brilliant at putting these films together, and at Union Station I was very involved in that because I helped with the initial fundraising, so it can be something that can be perhaps funded, you know, at least in part by partners and just the general community. But it's fabulous because then you can capture oral histories, you can capture, you know, visuals, and it would be fabulous to have something like that done for a certain point in time to be able to start really promoting the project. So I would strongly
Okay, that's great advice.
encourage talking to them.
He's working on an East I-70 film as we speak for the Section 106 process.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, and so he has already done a number of oral histories from people along that, but I know that he knows about this issue, and so he's definitely somebody to talk to. It's just trying to figure out where does the East I-70 issue begin and end, and where does this one begin and end.
That's good.
Yeah, and I would think the National Western Center kind of as a standalone almost.
Exactly.
Hey, jump in.
Real quick on the GES Neighborhood and Historic Resources, probably what you were alluding to is that the East 45th Avenue North was selected as one of the first Discover Denver assessment things. So that was about 1.5 years ago, I think. So
yeah.
That's probably part of what you're talking about moving forward. So, and that's one other thing I wanted to comment on, which is, and forgive me if you've already talked to Riverside Cemetery, obviously, Patricia would know. I just don't see where this beautiful asset and historic resources is spotlighted here, and I want to make sure that it is, and I was happy to see it was on the new NWCAC news website. It was made very clear that Riverside Cemetery is an important part of what we're discussing in this whole process. So can you kind of elaborate on where, and if it's not in here, how we can expand into incorporating, and again, forgive me because you may have already had conversations.
Specifically Riverside?
Yeah, that's an immense, anything.
Are you guys covering that in your?
Well, I mean, you know, we've had conversations, you know, with Riverside in terms of other efforts, but the issue with Riverside in terms of this one is that it's not actually on the National Western Stock Show property, and so
a small portion of the cemetery is even in Denver.
Yes.
Well, there's a lot of things.
But
there's a lot of things in here that, like, Yonah Globeville is on the property, but it figures in the master plan. It's not an issue to me. I think there's a.
We can include it.
Yeah, I think. I mean,
we
I
can
think
keep it. Well, let's get it.
Similar to Global and Elyria, to the extent that there is history of the National Western Center that is inherently connected to Riverside Cemetery. I think no doubt that sort of connection will be explored, but. As far as doing a distinct history on the Riverside Cemetery, it was beyond the context of this stuff.
Well, that connection that you're describing is what I'm looking for it to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to the neighborhoods. I mean,
Okay.
it's the connection the National Western has to the surrounding neighborhoods, to the north, east, west, south.
it will certainly, once the historian's on board and once they're talking about it, Riverside definitely has a connection just because of its location associated with.
Always is very clear. There's some cowboys under there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, you know, Discover Denver, as you mentioned, will definitely be dealing with Riverside because eventually Discover Denver is going to be in every single neighborhood. It's just where we're doing it first. Yeah.
There's nothing, if we have more in historic preservation or, you know.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Have you guys thought about doing a historic district?
That was considered in the master plan
Right.
and appendix G kind of
Right.
stepped back from that and focused on
I'm
designating
just
specific,
asking a question, because somebody's gonna ask the question.
specific structures.
Not saying I'm
No, somebody
advocating, I'm just saying.
will ask that question. That's absolutely. But yeah, it's one of those. And I'm very happy that the buildings that are being considered and all of that is being done. We want this to be, as you mentioned, a part of the public interpretation plan. So it's all brought together. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a district
Got it.
format. And then of course we also hope that it goes on to inform other processes like the design guidelines and other aspects for the new plan and for the new buildings that are going up.
Right.
There's a deliberateness to the way we're doing this, so it can inform other activities, right? And you rattle off a few, there are others as well.
Yeah, I mean, the district is from a cultural aspect, is a really interesting idea. There are some problems to it based on where the buildings are located and what's been done to that area.
Right.
Okay, next up is Kelly with the economic study, RTA update, and an update on if we ever found where that rock is.
No, but we're still searching for the rock, for our legal survey to start. Very quick on, I think the next, and I'm going to go actually out of order. I'm going to start with RTA because that will be very quick. So, as all of you know, we submitted a Regional Tourism Act application to the state. There has been a review process. The third-party review firm was hired by the state to do the review. They they review the report. They issue a report to the state and a recommendation. When we submitted our application in February, we asked for $117 million. Their draft report, which went to the state here a little over a week ago, which by the way was 2 weeks late, basically cut our reward in half, more than half. So nobody panic. Nobody panic. We are working directly with the state. We have found a number of errors in their math and their model. So Lottie Liebdula, who's the lead for us on that project, is working with our OED staff and directly with the state's OED department. They gave us their model. We are dissecting their model and again have found a variety of errors in their assessment of the project and of the financial part of it. So we are going to push hard. And we will report back. But that's an ongoing conversation with the state. But they are still on track. Ultimately, a recommendation will be made this fall. We have a presentation in early October, which many of you, not all of you, can participate in. And I know Erica's reached out to some of you to start that process. That needs to be a very organized and deliberate message to the state so that we can win this thing. Because obviously, every dollar matters. In terms of winning this. So stay tuned for more, but we have a crack team working with the state to win that award and win as much money as we can. But right now it's we're dissecting that report from EPS.
Kelly, can I briefly talk a little bit more about the RTA?
Sure.
So again, we have a list of folks who are partners who have asked how they can help, and they will be providing a testimonial in support of us receiving the funds. And again, I have talked to a few of you. The state has really asked us to coordinate the speaking testimonials. They're 3 minutes, so you don't get a lot of time, but they want to make sure that they don't hear the same thing over and over again because it's actually a 2-hour testimonial period. So it's a public comment period for 2 hours. So if you are interested, anyone can actually sign up, but if you are interested in doing that, feel free to sign up, but I would really greatly appreciate it if you could contact us so that we can coordinate and make sure that from your standpoint, from the residents' side, that there's no repetition, and that you get to focus on different things, because we all know this project is so huge, so we can each take a little bit here and there, depending on what you're passionate about, and make sure that they get to hear everything from everyone.
Thank you, Erica.
All right, so what's going around now, and Mickey had asked for some more detail in an email about the economic study. So this this goes back, I'm going to go back to what Drew started with in terms of the CSU report. One of the most significant opportunities we have on this site in partnership with CSU is really exploring and activating the whole agribusiness and science sector around this campus. So we issued a competitive RFP to select a firm to do what we're calling the next generation agricultural business study, economic study. 3 firms submitted bids, and through the selection process, AECOM put just a phenomenal team together. AECOM is a global company, and they built really a phenomenal team. They won that award. We are in contract negotiations with them. But this is the work plan, or essentially the scope of work, and it's really 3 pieces. Now, we will negotiate the final scope of work, but these are the 3 big buckets. So the first is economic and market opportunity analysis. So that's a large portion of their work, both local, so impact on the local community. So how do we kind of reach the tentacles of the National Western Center into the neighborhoods, right? That's one. And then growing it, then what's the regional context? How do you start to get businesses to locate along the I-70 corridor, along I-25? There are already 800 between Denver and Fort Collins. How do you activate those 800 businesses that are in agribusiness today, be a part of this conversation, and then ultimately to a global airport to create the global platform for Colorado. So that's part one, and you can read, you guys can read these on your own. The second is center operations and partnerships. This gets to starting to put the framework around the governance structure and how this very complicated place will operate. That's a small portion of their work, but one. Steve Kaplan, who's a local lawyer, has done a lot of work around this area and will be very helpful to us as we start to put a framework together for the final governance structure. And then the third is around public-private partnerships. You know, from day one, the mayor talked about there's no way we can complete this project without new partnerships. So there will be a whole conversation about how you start to create the context for formalizing partnerships that ultimately lead to financial partnerships. So that's their work. They'll get started here probably in September, late September. And then the work will go through February of next year. So the final report gets issued in February. And reports will be issued, kind of interim reports will be issued to the Executive Oversight Committee, and we will build in some time for them to come to this group and report out as they start their work. Yes, Mickey?
Kelly, is collaboration with CSU part of this study? Are they involved?
CSU was actually on the selection committee. And there, James Pritchard, who is on their advancement team, reviewed the scope, the initial scope. So yes, CSU is integrally involved. All the partners, Paul Andrews was on the selection committee, so we're making sure that this is, that we're building the collaborative partnerships from the inside out. And obviously as they report out to this group, obviously I'm assuming this group will be very interested in both the local context. How do we start to build the economic integration back into the neighborhoods? And then, Mickey, you've talked a lot about the global platform. How do we make this a global opportunity? So that's what this report will go, take the master plan from 100,000 feet down to 50,000 feet. Yes?
I think this would be an appropriate moment to bring forward something from long ago and far away in our NWCAC process having to do with the report that Drew highlighted, the CSU report there. What's the title on that again?
It's a long title.
That's okay. But
want me to read it?
No, it's sure. Well, I mean, this was originally put on the table here through CSU about a year and a half ago. And one of the observations was that groups like Colorado Serum, the local ag, were not actually part of the discussion in that document, which is a beautiful document and everything. It is fantastic. And then there was some suggestion that be revisited. I'm just wanting to just.
So you just teed a softball for me. So another part of this work is an agribusiness forum.
Okay, so if I could finish my thought.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What I just wanted to say that the point that I'm trying to make is that we have a historic economy here with existing businesses. We can have forums, and that's great. But what I'm saying is that the existing businesses, I feel, especially given the context of the neighborhoods, the historic ag-related businesses, I hope they can be spotlighted, and that can be part of what the whole assessment is. So, I mean, and I'm not, Kelly, I really don't want it to be controversial, I just want to make sure.
I'm not taking it as
Okay.
controversial.
All right.
I'm taking it as complimentary. I'm sorry, my head is just, I'm really
There's a Bronco
struggling.
that uses a nasal for
No,
migraines. and
I'm
he's-
fine.
Okay.
I've lived with it since I was young.
Okay.
So this forum is all about taking the report from CSU, taking this econ study, and putting together businesses, both current and future, between the state and the city, CSU and all the partners, and actually beginning a conversation about how you pull all these pieces together. So having those local companies participate in that conversation. Ardent Mills, which is a local, it's a global company, but they're located in Denver now. Bringing all those parties together to talk about how do we retain, grow, and attract agribusinesses, small, medium, and large, to Colorado, and make this the Silicon Valley of ag. So that will kick off sometime this fall. I'll close with this piece on this because I know Eric's still got to do his report. There was a group of reporters, I won't say from where, who said, I don't know why the mayor keeps talking about this agribusiness thing. It's a dying industry. And that just told me that we as a city, or certain factions of the city, have forgotten that we don't have the capacity today to feed the number of people that are going to be on this planet by 2050. So agriculture, both in its traditional and modern forms, are significantly important. It's the largest employer in our state. 175,000 people are employed in ag, and it generates one of the largest economic drivers of our state, $41 billion a year. So we need to kind of engage people about the importance of this industry, and that Global Area Swansea, we're at the center of it and have been for a very long time. So that'll be another piece. You guys will participate.
Just a quick question. Is the state and Metro Denver eco-development groups involved?
They will be a
in
part of
this?
that conversation.
Okay, because I would think that would be.
I think we're up to 50 people participating on the forums. All right. I'm done.
Eric for the next three.
All right, so I'll go through those three, and then there's a couple more, so I'll go through them pretty quickly. So rail consolidation, our process continues in putting our team together. The city has engaged outside counsel to help us on the legal side. We are this close to getting our consultant on board. It's been a very long and arduous process, specifically because, number one, finding people that actually want to do it is difficult because they don't want to be our consultant. They want to design the rail because they can make a lot more money designing the rail. But we have found a consultant who's very qualified to help us develop our strategy for negotiations with Denver Rock Island. We have a very, very capable negotiator, and we've also found a very, I think they were the most highly recommended, and they agreed to do it, a team actually out of DC to help us value Denver Rock Island's assets. So those are kind of the three pieces of the consultant that we're bringing on board. I've been beating them up on their numbers a little bit over the last few weeks, which has slowed things down a little bit, but we're very close to getting them on board, and once we do, hopefully in the next couple weeks, we'll launch into the negotiations with Denver Rock Island. The first part of that, well, two pieces. One being developing the strategy for how we're going to engage them, and two, starting a process for design. The goal is to bring Denver Rock Island to the table, but we pay them to come to the table to sit with us through a design process of this consolidated rail, and hopefully that will get started soon, as soon as possible. So I can't give specifics on timeline because this is the sort of thing that could take 12 months, 18 months, 36 months, and it will very much, the ball will be in Denver Rock Island's court the entire time.
And we're going to need this committee's help, I think, along that way. This will not be an easy process.
No.
And they're a huge winner out of this. We're going to rebuild their system essentially for them. It'll be safer, it'll be better, but the family is. They're good people, but they're not very engaged.
They're frankly busy running their rail.
Yeah.
I mean, the owner is literally in their maintenance shop working on their trains. So this is not first and foremost on their mind, which I understand.
Would it help to pay them a visit?
So
at some point,
not yet.
Not yet. All right, we'll hold the boys back then.
Yeah, hold the boys back. That time may come, and John, you will definitely be our first call.
One quick question.
Yes.
With all a lot of their users are gonna be taken out of the condemnation center.
So
How many users
Not
are they
necessarily,
gonna
let's
have
be careful.
left?
Yeah, so
Let's not
there,
use the C word.
Let's not necessarily act.
It'd be acquired by some method, right?
no, so there are only 2 active users that are within the National Western campus who we plan on relocating. And the important thing is relocating. And our goal is to relocate them on Denver Rock Island's lines somewhere else so that there's no net economic impact to Denver Rock Island other than disruption of business, and we're going to be paying them for disruption.
Not losing ultimate business, which is great.
Exactly. I mean, that's our goal. And they've made it very clear to us, and as a city, we have that responsibility to them, which is no economic impact on their business. And at the end of the day, the goal is that economically, their revenues are the same, and they have brand new rail. So it's going to be a net win for Denver Rock Island at the end of the day. So, any other questions on rail?
Parking sounds good about that.
I see a wonderful opportunity there to include some historic, and I don't know if the Forney people would be too glad to see that, but you might sweeten the pot a little bit with that to them. If they could be involved on their rail line after it's relocated with some type of historic rail.
Yeah, there's the connection, the rail connection to National Western. National Western and that rail line used to actually be the same company.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this goes back 80, 90 years or
Over 100 years.
Over 100 years. They used to be the same company. So, John, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of advantage.
And that might help them.
The question is whether they're interested in that, and that I don't know, but we'll find that out through the conversation with us. So.
Are there provisions for collecting museum pieces?
We
Those
haven't.
things are torn down, I just want to keep that on the table.
Yeah, we haven't built that into our strategy yet.
I hope you do, because like switching, I mean, we talked about this a little bit about a year ago.
Yeah.
I just think we can get some very cool things as we tear these apart.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And probably some not so cool.
It's probably some stuff that we don't want to
disposal
know.
place.
We were talking about historic stuff.
Parking study update very quickly. We will have, so we have a consultant right now who's writing the scope of work for this parking study. And as a refresher, the parking study is more than just parking. It's about parking, access, intermodal access for the overall campus, about where we put people to park their cars, what type of structures we put them in, how we move people around the campus through the various events, etc. So we have a company called Apex who's writing the scope of work right now. We will have a draft scope of work the middle of September. As soon as it's in reasonable shape to share with folks, we will bring it to the CAC for everyone to see and provide feedback on it before we go out with the RFP.
Is this related to the Dr. Cog application for funding? Did we
So
get that?
yes, half of that, so we've broken up the parking management study into 2 pieces. The first piece is what we're gonna be going out on the street for right away. The second piece is what we're gonna be
We're just trying to
chasing
figure out the
Dr.
dates and numbers.
So we're still waiting to get back on that?
Oh, we haven't.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
have,
wrote
sorry,
the letter,
sorry,
we all
we have,
Yeah, thank you for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we are still, yeah.
Still waiting.
we're still waiting. Any questions on the parking?
It must be your timer.
Yeah. Public realm study, so we have gone through kind of the first round of iterations of scope of work on the public realm study. We still have a few more rounds internally to go through. Still have a lot of work to kind of hone it into what we want it to be. The public realm study is the study that is where we will be taking a look at all of these huge open spaces and plazas within the campus. We've got 45 acres of open space within the campus. So this is the study where we're going to be digging into those. We know what our big program elements are going to be on the campus. We've got stockyards, we've got livestock, equestrian, arena, expo, but it's the other 50 acres of land on here that we don't want at the end of the day to feel like enormous wide open spaces. So this public realm study it's a big study. Steve and his crew in CPD are leading the effort on writing the scope, working with me and Kelly on that. And we've gone through the first round, and we've probably got 1 or 2 more rounds of iteration on the scope before it's ready to put into an RFP.
Does that include any integration of the existing public spaces and parks, or is it only?
So it's all north of I-70. So Globeville Landing Park, which is to the south, is not included in that. Are there specific open spaces that you're thinking
Well, I'm
about?
talking about the other park, north side.
Oh, north side.
That will get covered in the study, the master plan study that we will do in 16.
Exactly. So that's the Parks Master Plan. that will be-
2016.
2016, we're funding the integration of Northside Park, Heron Pond Hill are open space, the integration of those parcels for the larger community, and obviously the work we do on as we kick off the public realm study for the National Western will help inform that study.
So we're looking specifically within the boundaries of our campus north of I-70.
East of the river.
East of the river.
Okay.
Correct.
We'll pick up the West Bank as part of the master plan for 16.
Last few things on the regeneration front, which is everything related to sustainability. We are very excited. We're launching actually a process next week funded by the Natural Resource Defense Council to start to really dig into an analysis of what types of district scale solutions we will be pursuing for energy, waste, and water on the campus, energy production, waste management, water recycling, et cetera, all of those things that we'll be looking at holistically for the entire campus, all 270 acres within the district. And we're starting the process with a company in Portland called Putman & Associates, who's going to be leading a very quick and very thorough study in partnership with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, based out in Golden, who is ecstatic about this whole project and is seeking all kinds of funding to help us with it. So that process is launching next week.
Doesn't CSU do a lot of that also? Are you bringing
So
him in?
we are working, Jocelyn, so there's three of us that are kind of leading the regeneration process. It's me, Celia Vanderloop, and Jocelyn Hiddle. So Jocelyn is bringing in CSU resources as needed.
So the Institute is behind there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, we've met with Brian Dunbar and his group several times, and they're going to be integrally involved as well. So we've got a lot of good people working on that. 30% Brighton Boulevard. Kelly mentioned we're finalizing an internal review at the city on the 30% design of Brighton Boulevard from 44th and Race up to just short of Race Court. The goal of that is to make sure that it's included in the CDOT RFP for the I-70 work. I would say communication with CDOT is getting a lot better. It's been challenging. They've been very, very protective of their RFP document because of concerns about litigation, giving people insight that other folks don't have.
These are for the firms that are competing. For
the firms that are competing for that I-70 work. And that I-70 work isn't just restricted to the viaduct itself, but it goes beyond the boundaries of the viaduct. And actually within the boundaries of the I-70 work is Brighton Boulevard from 44th up to 47th. So we're working very closely with CDOT to make sure that we get our design for what we want, for what the neighborhood wants and what we want of Brighton Boulevard into the CDOT RFP so that somebody else pays for that work. So we're working diligently now to finalize that 30% design so that CDOT can include it in their RFP. Yes, Drew.
So I think it's very important that there would be a public process with that.
It's a very public process.
I know I've spoken with people from CDOT and that they're in their RFP process, they're having public meetings, putting out what it's being designed as they go along.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, their design has been
the firm that they select will do the design work.
Well, we'll take the design
to a
beyond.
certain point.
Yeah, they've taken it to about 10%.
Can I add something to Drew's statement?
Yeah, but let me just quickly address that. So the CDOT process, I can't speak to specifically the CDOT process related to I-70. And I agree, I mean, we've experienced it firsthand. Communication with CDOT has been challenging, but it's specifically because of their concern, because of what they dealt with on 36, with the P3 that they went through on 36, which ended up being very, very challenging for them. So they don't want to go through those same problems that they had early on I-70. But as a result of that, communication has been challenging, but our goal, like what I'm singularly focused on, is the impact that the I-70 process has on National Western and on Brighton Boulevard. And so I'm singularly focused on making sure that we get our design for Brighton Boulevard into their documents, into their RFP documents, so that the developer that they choose builds the Brighton Boulevard that we want and not the Brighton Boulevard that the developer wants, if that makes sense.
I think that is crucial and to the point, because CDOT, and I said it in council, some of us on this committee were at council having to do with the drainage funding issue that left a bad, terrible distaste in our former city council persons. I mean, she was terribly upset, and I'm sorry, Judy, I say it publicly, but we were there because, hopefully this will never happen again. Found our sides on speaking against an issue that was, and I still, because of lack of veracity, and it's been going on for, I don't know how long. There've been communications with CDOT and the city on this funding scheme, and we didn't know anything about it until the last minute. And that's why we went to council and spoke against it. And that's why the other members on this committee spoke against it. And I think it's thin ice there, and we don't want to let that happen again.
Right.
And that's why I think Drew's question is crucial. That, we need to stick together as much as we can. We need to support your efforts to the best of our ability. But we also have to make sure an incident like that doesn't occur again. Because it was terrible, made me feel bad. We did what we had to do at that time, I think, just don't want it to happen again.
So could I just summarize that my concern is that whatever goes into those final, in the case of I-70, whatever goes into those final documents is all we get from in the neighborhoods as far as mitigation, whatever, sound walls, that. So that needs to be, and this is a CDOT regarding the I-70 project, then it has to be a public process that we make sure that we get what we want. And I assume that that would be similar with the Brighton Boulevard project, that it needs to be public process so that, we don't, because once you sign the contract, that's what it is, whatever we didn't get.
Unless it's a VA.
But for clarity, the you is none of us. It's CDOT that signs that contract. It's not the city.
But what would you put in the RFP?
So what we will put in the RFP is the 30% design of the Brighton Boulevard, the 30% design of the Brighton Boulevard cross-section, intersection from 44th to 47th, which is the design that we went through with the CAC, and then we had the separate public meeting on the Brighton Boulevard design. So we'll provide that to CDOT, and then CDOT is taking it from there. They have pledged to us, though, they have said, listen, we want to make sure that what gets built by the developer is what the neighborhood wants. So when you provide us, we want you to provide us with a design that the neighborhood wants and the neighborhood has endorsed. So the design that we give them, in all likelihood, will be the design that ends up being implemented by the developer, which is why we've had the public process to date on that 30% design.
But Eric, at the public meeting they had last week, they said explicitly that the RFP will be public access, the entire document, 400 pages.
Yeah, that's coming out on September 15th.
It'll be.
Yeah. Well, I should say the first iteration of that RFP document is coming out.
I know that maybe we're going to read it all, but it'll all be out there.
Yeah, once it's out, it's going to be out there. It's until September 15th that they've been very, very close on it.
Yeah. So, right back there.
Yes.
So I just pulled it up. So you're working on the design with by 90% design. So is NWCAC or are other city agencies doing the 30% design in the negotiation for the other parts of the highway in the NDC jurisdiction? So 47th North, Sound Walls, who's spearheading that?
So the I-70 East project is one of the 6 portfolios within the, so I'm the executive sponsor, right, of all 6 projects. The highway project, though, and the technical aspects of the highway project include a combination of folks from CPD, Public Works, Denver Environmental Health. Those are the kind of the core three. And there's ongoing conversations about all those other components. Obviously, what we're talking about tonight is specific to part of a road that impacts the National Western Center campus redevelopment. So it's a sub-project within the National Western.
Right, but this was the only one I heard of the city providing 30% design on. Is that limited to the projects impacting National
I
Western?
can't speak because I'm not as close to those, but I mean, again,
I'll ask you
my
something
interest
else,
is that we, and Eric, you know, is that we're delivering what we need so that we can actually build the master plan as you guys have supported.
Right.
So the more we give CDOT, the better.
Yeah, this isn't, and for clarity, this isn't necessarily something they asked for. It's something that we said, you know what, let's do it. And we told CDOT we were going to do it, and they said, you know, great, we'd love that. Because we don't want to have to design this. If you design it, that makes our life a lot easier. So it's something that we proactively did.
Mickey, then David.
One of the questions I have is really regarding the cover. Nobody seems to have taken full responsibility for what happens on that cover. It's right now, in listening to CDOT people, I said, you're getting a partner, and that partner's responsibility to include doing something with the cover and with the access to the cover. I did not get a response to that question. I evaded it. And I'm just wondering whether it's CDOT's responsibility, is it going to be the partner with CDOT, is it going to be the city? I mean, that's the critical thing you've been selling, and yet I don't know what happens on the top.
So I'm happy, we will bring our team probably to probably for the next meeting, if that's okay. Or Mickey, I'm happy to have an offline, but it would be more powerful if we brought the team from the city, which is also within NDCC, helping lead that conversation about, you know, we've had the 2 public meetings to get feedback on what the community wants to see on the cover, and then you got to go execute it, right? We got to get the developer that CDOT will select to go execute. So why don't we, if it's okay with you, we will bring our city team to the next meeting and do a report.
Perfect. I think Vicky's talking about operations and maintenance.
No, we will include that. So there's a process we're going to go through, and the city is helping lead that.
Well, by that point, we'll have the RFP out, so
Right.
you'll know what's in it.
There's a team that we've assembled within the NDCC that are cross-agency, is represented by cross agencies that are helping lead those conversations.
Right, David.
You know, I just want to reiterate what like John was saying. If you want us in a loop, we'll be in the loop, but don't keep us in the dark. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been anything on the 30% design that hasn't been presented to the community to this day. We presented the 30% design, I think it was preliminary, Steve presented it probably 3 CACs ago, and then we had a public meeting for the community at National Western about 2 months ago to go through that 30% design.
And there was a preliminary cross-section actually in the master plan.
Yeah, so we've been presenting that to the community throughout, and what's going through review at the city right now is what was presented to the community, taking the feedback from that public process, as well as all the feedback from the folks within the city who do their transportation stuff, and we collected comments from CDOT as well, and we're just incorporating those into the design, and then we're done with the 30%.
Okay, but if there's changes, let us know. So
Yeah,
we don't wind up where, you know,
Yeah,
we're
once
expecting
we-
one thing and we get another.
Yeah, no, and
You know,
the changes that we're seeing, the feedback that we've gotten it's been pretty minimal. You know, the general cross-section is staying the same from what was presented to the CAC, and what was presented at the public meeting, and a couple changes to the islands, specifically underneath the I-70 viaduct, but other than that, it's pretty much exactly the same.
So Eric, I mean, the street section is one thing, but the whole interchange is going to be quite complicated, so I guess that's what I'm concerned about, is how's that going to work?
The interchange itself?
Yeah, the exit, the Brighton Boulevard I-70.
Yeah, so that's all, yeah, that was all in the 30% design that we brought to at the public meeting.
Okay.
And that'll be, well, the 30% is not online yet. It's in internal review at the city now. and as soon as they finish that process, then we'll put it online. They haven't, I think they accepted comments, they accept comments until tomorrow. The 28th is the last day for internal comments at the city, and then it goes back to the designer, to SEH, and then they incorporate all those comments, and then they release the final issue.
Okay. So anything else there?
Did you mean no exit? Is that what you're asking? Like,
Yeah, just that whole interchange, reworking that, I'm really concerned about
Yeah.
if that
Well,
works. And it needs to
one
work for
thing-
National Western, it
Yeah.
needs to work for the neighborhoods.
One thing you will see is on September 15th, CDOT will be releasing their first draft of the RFP documents.
When is that again?
September 15th.
Okay.
And that will be, I believe they're issuing it online, so you should be able to go to the CDOT website and find those documents. And I would assume, I can't speak, I don't know for sure, but I would assume that they'll have their preliminary drawings in there, where you'll be able to see, will they?
So the RFP that they're issuing in September, they're not going to include information about mitigation and other things that will be included in the final EIS, which is planned to be released in January. So a lot of the stuff that you want to find in the RFP is not in there yet because the environmental process is not finished.
Well, it's just, I don't want to get bogged down in the I-70 issue, but this is a lot of material for neighborhoods to digest, and we did a 30-day comment period.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, they give the city the same. We're working on extending.
last time we got 60 days, but,
Yeah.
which I think we're going to need. But anyway, okay, so.
Okay. Eric, do you have anything else?
No, the last thing is, title work and survey work. So the four critical paths, I think I've mentioned these before, is land acquisition, rail consolidation, environmental, and entitlements. And environmental, we're almost done with the draft report that Celia Vanderloop, I think was the last meeting she talked about. So we're almost done with that draft report. So that will be ready, I think, hopefully by next DAC or the one after that. And then on the entitlements, we started a process for gathering all of the title, going through all the title work for the properties both owned by the city and owned by other property owners. And we're starting to work through all of the title exceptions, and it's honestly, it's fascinating. It's truly fascinating. And we'll have survey rolling hopefully by the end of this year, by November, December timeframe or something. That's it.
Okay, I think it's Maria with the November and December meetings.
We need you guys to weigh in. Our November meeting is, as much as we all love each other, is on Turkey Day. And our December meeting is close to a couple of days after Christmas. So if you all could, I think we'll put out, is Matt's still here? I think we'll put something out. I know you guys, I know that what happens when you crunch up on November and December, you guys have a lot of other standing meetings that also get done. So we have to pick a date for November and December. So I'm not sure that if you guys want to think about it. Huh?
You want to make a recommendation?
We don't have a recommendation because, quite candidly, we're not privy to all of your standing meetings that you guys have. So,
And
you
we're all
aren't
going to be
either.
hung over for a week. We're all going to be hung over for a week after the election.
I can't drink that stock show.
That's right. So if you guys could, if you guys want to throw out something,
See you, Tracy.
but like, bye Tracy. I don't know, the third Thursday in November, the week before, the Thursday before Thanksgiving? Huh?
What did we do last year?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I remember.
Then we did the week before.
So do you want, I think that's right, we did.
Yeah, let's do the same thing.
All right, so the
There's a Rhino shebang on the 14th, maybe, Tracy. Is that?
19th of November is a Thursday.
Oh, it's a Thursday. So we do, okay.
How about the 19th and the 17th of December? 19th of November and the 17th of December.
Why are we trying to keep Thursdays just as a standing?
We'll do some holiday cheer for both or something.
Do it.
Okay.
Assuming we'll still be happy. So, anyway, okay, so we'll pick those two dates. December, we won't be able to meet at the stock show, so we'll figure that out.
I'd love to meet at the museum at least once.
Museum.
Which museum?
Denver Museum of Nature and Science, that's right, it's a history museum, and we haven't met there yet.
That's right, we haven't met there yet.
Yeah, we can meet there too.
We haven't met there yet, so, okay. All right, so Matt, did you get that, December 17th and November 19th?
Yeah.
Can't be here in December.
Stock show starts setting up in December. By that point, they're in full mode, yeah. So we won't be able to do that, so, okay. The only other thing is, I'm sitting here looking at my BlackBerry because I have 37 notices from my office for this meeting today. Did all of you guys get this? Or is it just me and Terrence? You know, a calendar, an Outlook notice? My office generated 37 Outlook notices for the same meeting on the same day. You didn't get any?
I think they're saying how much they trust that you would show up.
I think it was just us.
I guess it was us, so, okay. Well, I think we're having some problems with our computer server. So, anyway, but I said here, we've got 37 notices for the same meeting. Flossie?
Fran, I know there's a lot going on, but I know the last 2 months we talked about maybe some of the people cycling off and putting a process in to have new members.
You're correct.
And so could we add that for next month?
For September, yes.
It's unresolved.
It's unresolved, but yes.
We need to have a discussion before we do how.
Yes. But yes, correct. We'll add that to September.
Wait a minute, back up a bit. What are we going to be talking?
Remember that we've talked about this.
Membership.
Correct.
That's a loose thread from the last week.
It's a loose thread.
So are we going to actually talk about membership, or are we going to set some process for criteria for membership?
If and then how.
We have gotten responses from 4 out of the 5 people that we sent out. The only person who did not respond at all, so we're assuming he's off the committee, which we talked about last week, is Tony Curcio. So the other 4 people want to continue staying on.
How about if we meet with
Is that
Okay,
everything?
that's everything.
Meeting adjourned.